Hello and welcome to the Race to a Trillion video series. In this video, we're going to cover book 4 and we're going to talk about just how large of a number a trillion is. How much is a trillion? And it is a lot. It is really a number that is difficult to get your head around completely. As we saw earlier, it's 12 zeros, and that's a lot of zeros. And so it's just a huge amount. And when you start to kind of think about the physical things that are associated with 12 zeros, um, it really is a lot. So if you were to count from 1 to a trillion at the rate of one number per second without stopping, it would take you 31,688 years to reach a trillion. So essentially, a human being can't count to a trillion. Uh, I think that's a true statement. I don't think um, it's at all possible. It's just something you cannot do. And then if you had $1 trillion to spend $1 million every day, it would take you 2,739 years to spend it all. That one's really just mind-boggling as well. Distance, 1 trillion inches equates to 15,783,840 miles, which is enough to wrap around the Earth's equator over 630 times, travel the moon and back more than 33 times. That's a trillion inches. Grains of sand. If you imagine a trillion grains of sand, it would fill a large building. For context, a typical sand grain is about 0.5 millimeters in diameter, and a cubic meter can hold roughly 50 billion grains. So a trillion grains would fill about 20 cubic meters, which is a sizable amount, but still imaginable. So luckily, grains of sand can quantify a trillion. It's such a stretch that we have to use grains of sand, sheets of paper, digital storage. Um, a terabyte is roughly a trillion bytes. In practical terms, if you had a trillion bytes of data, you could store about 200,000 5-minute songs, or about 310,000 pictures, or approximately 500 hours of high-definition video. And so, I mean, I think that is one area, data storage, and we can achieve a trillion. One thing that I don't touch on, or we don't touch on too much in these books and in this video series, is that, of course, the United States federal government has been in the trillions for a while. I mean, I think the federal debt is 34 trillion US. And so, as necessarily so, that the federal budget is trillions of dollars a year, and whereas we're talking about these companies being worth $3 trillion, our federal funding each year is more than $1 trillion. So yeah, the United States federal debt is at 31 trillion. Let's see, yes. And the U.S. federal budget, I think, is multiple trillions per year. So while these corporations are, worth $3 trillion, and we're hopefully going to have the first trillionaire, our federal government, good old Uncle Sam, has been dealing in the trillions for some time. So yeah, in 2023, we spent 6.13 trillion. The federal government spent in 1 year. That's pretty incredible. And so, even in grains of sand, $6.13 trillion is a lot. And so let's see, what year did the federal budget? I don't know, the AI will know this, but we want to ask what year was the federal budget exceed $1 trillion for the first time. And, you know, I'll say it's probably in the 90s. 1987. So that's really interesting that way back in 1987, we exceeded $1 trillion. So that was during the Cold War and Ronnie Reagan. So, you know, I think that's you know, a great thing to write about and to discuss more at another time. Is that when we first started about talking about trillions is during the Cold War in the 80s, and so you can kind of think back to those times, and you know, folks during that time probably thought the first $1 trillion company would be a military company, but thankfully things have changed since then, and you know, it's consumer electronics and web companies. So yeah, we touch on the federal debt, which is 34 trillion, and you know, infrastructure projects and things like that is why the federal government spends um, trillions of dollars each year, and it takes a lot of money to keep the U.S. Uh, running as we do, and so I think this is some topics that need to be expanded upon and um, thought about more. But it is definitely fun to think about the size of $1 trillion. So let's see if we have that calculation. Um, yeah, and so a dollar bill is 0.043 thick, and so a pile of $1 trillion would be um, 67,866 miles. So that is quite the stack. You know, if you put that in a cube, it would be absolutely enormous. So, but that's $1 bills. I don't know. We could do it with the largest denomination we could. I think the largest denomination is 10,000. Oh, $10,000 bills were retired apparently. Oh, there was once $100,000 bill. But yeah, and so yeah, there's $5,000 bills and $1,000 bills. Oh, they're saying it's $100 bill. Oh, geez. So they're saying these larger denominations, probably because they can be forged, don't really exist anymore. But you know, I think they're still around. I just haven't seen them. But yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that those larger denominations don't really exist anymore. But yeah, we can look into that further. Sorry to end this video on kind of a downer with finding out that larger denominations were retired, but still, it's interesting to think about. And so, this stack of $1 bills is it would probably be $1 bills or $100 bills, and so you would just take two zeros off of this, and it's still an incredibly large amount of money. So let's push on to book 5, and we'll get some better topics here. Thank you so much for listening.